Hi guys, I'm back. Most of the videos I've done so far are on reloading, so I thought I'd try something a little different today. And this is about a Kahr Cm9. Some people like these guns, some people don't like them, some are in the middle of the road with them. I've had this for quite some time and got, probably 2,500, 3,000 rounds through it. It is ammo sensitive. Once you find the right ammo, they do work quite well. Basically box stock, I put a new Dawson fiber optic front sight on it. The rear sight, they used to come through with the dot the eye system. I just couldn't adapt to that. I took the rear sight out. The dovetail is the same both ways. I do believe there's a way to drift it out. I don't remember which way it is right at the moment, but you can drift it out, flip it, and reinsert it. I had a small diamond bit that I could mount in the Dremel, and I put two dots or two dimples there, and then I could put white lacquer in there just to create a 3-dot system. A little traction tape. This is the good 3M tape in here. That helps a lot trying to pull this slide back. It does have a hefty recoil spring in this. They were well known for their smooth trigger. Lock that back like that. Show you we are free and clear. And they're known for a smooth, long trigger. This trigger is almost like a double action revolver. I mean, it has a long pull to it, but it's smooth like a nice revolver. So it pulls back and then it kicks off like that. But you can see I normally don't like dry firing guns, even though they say you can with the striker system, but I was just showing you that. My problem with this was I didn't have a smooth trigger to this. It felt very gritty pulling that trigger back. And what I'm going to show you here, and doesn't do anything for the trigger pull. You're not doing anything that will get you in trouble. All you're doing is smoothing out that transition from pulling that striker back. And that's the way it should be from the factory. This one wasn't. So I checked everything inside, and let me pull this apart and we'll go through this step by step. First thing, it has to be cocked. Then you pull back the slide. There's a small notch here. There's the release button under here. There are two dashes here. They don't quite exactly line up, but you pull this back to about where those lines are, and then you can push the slide release out. Now that comes out. What you have to do, and I usually just pull back on the slide slightly like that, and then I pull the trigger. Okay, now the slide pulls out. I checked everything in the mechanism between the trigger and the striker release back here. Everything felt super smooth on this end of the gun. So somewhere inside here I was getting that gritty feel. So I'll show you how that was done. If you've never taken one of these apart, I'll show you right now. Not that difficult. Barrel comes right out, no bushing. A few simple tools that we need. This I made up out of a piece of 1/8" music wire. Very valuable tool taking this thing apart, because you have to depress the striker spring and relieve the pressure off the slide door. So for that, I just grab like a large jeweler's screwdriver here, and what we're going to do is we get in here and pull back on that spring, and now you can see I got the spring captured under this. So now there's that spring, because it goes inside this back door too, so it's not going to slide out easily. In the back here you have a small dimple here. There is a rod, a spring, and a rod which goes to the extractor right here. This is what we have to remove next. That I like to go in with a smaller jeweler screwdriver You just got to find the sweet spot until you can feel when you press down that the spring pushes down. And once, okay, there it is right there. Now we should be able to start to wiggle this back door off. And once we get that back a little bit, like that, okay, that's all we need to do with that. Now I can get my finger in there and pull this back. Very important, keep your finger over that hole or you will lose these parts. So we can just slide this whole thing out now, like that, and you could hear the thing was trying to get away. And you can see right there, there's the pin I was telling you about. Okay, at that point, now we can remove this holder, and I just slip this up like this and keep my finger there and catch the striker spring. Put that aside. There's the striker spring. Now we can pull this out if it'll come out. There it goes. And we can pull that out, and if the spring comes out, there's one more in there. We'll get that in a minute. Now for the striker block, we just press down on that, and we can take the whole striker assembly out. We can set that aside. Now, if that rod is not in the way, this striker block should just come straight out like so. Okay, careful, because there's a small spring at the bottom of that thing. It's not pinned in there, so it can get lost. Okay, the extractor at this point should just fall in like that. There should be one more rod in here, if I can get it to come out. And let's see if it'll come out. I can see it. There it is. Okay, that's the one that goes against the extractor. So we have this down to bare bones. What was causing that? Now you have your extractor, and this is what they call, or your striker, and this is what they call the striker spacer. The spring rides into that. So I cleaned off anything sharp on this and made sure there was nothing that was you know, dragging and making the noise and the feel to it. Even though I had this pretty cleaned up and, you know, semi-polished, I was still feeling a gritty feeling in there. So I finally figured out, I was in there with a flashlight looking down the channel, and I could see that there were still machine marks through the bore of where the striker would go through. And if you took something small that had any kind of edge on it, if you moved it back and forth, you could just feel it clicking back and forth. So that was the culprit of making the trigger feel gritty. The way I fixed that was, now I've had this for many years. It used to be, and you've probably seen them or even have them, this was part of a knife sharpening setup. Came with a wood block, and then you had two porcelain rods that you could run the blade down to sharpen knives with. Lord only knows what happened to the rest of this, but I still have one rod that I use, and it's extremely smooth. I mean, it's just super smooth. So trying to figure out what tool to use in there, this actually ended up being my best tool. I could go in here, and slightly smaller than the bore, and I could go in and lightly and just work this around. And I just kept on doing that for a while, you know, and you'll see it all get black, and you can clean these with Ajax once you get them dirtied up. And I just kept on going in there and smoothing this thing out. This thing is like crazy smooth. It's probably better than 3000 or better. So you're not taking material off. All you're doing is just smoothing things out. Once I did that, got it good and cleaned again, and reinstalled everything, it was 100% better on the trigger pull. So that was all the drag inside there. It is a production gun, and you know, it is what it is. So that was my finding of a gritty trigger on the cars. I've heard of the transfer bars and stuff like that, but if the frame feels smooth like that, and there's no grittiness to it, then it led me back to this. So I cleaned this up, and with this porcelain stick went in and cleaned up the inside of the striker. I didn't take material out, I just smoothed it out. So that was how that all went. So now we can reassemble this guy here. So for that, first thing we're going to do, sometimes what I do on this is I'll put a little dab of grease in there, and that'll hold that spring. Makes it a lot easier. So that would be that way. This is going to drop in. I'll try to do this with my hands. My hands are extremely sweaty right now. It's hot in here. Okay, so we have that in. So we got to make sure that stays. The extractor, you have to come in at a slight angle and get it back into the hole, right like that. Okay, so we put our thumb there, do that. This is for the extractor. You can see it's cut at an angle like that. You want that long tip facing out to you. That's going to ride on the back of the extractor. So just make sure you put it in with the long tip facing to the outer portion of the slide. So we slide that in like so, and we put the spring back in, and we can put our striker back in like that, and tilt, press that down. Okay, now we have the striker stop right there. Now keep a little pressure on that extractor, or we'll flop out on you. That goes there. Striker spring in. Now once again, we're going to be using that tool that I showed you that we made up in the shop here, and these things can get away from you. So once again, if you do gun stuff, you know how springs go. So you can press in and get that on. Okay, now you can drop that down and it'll take all the tension out of it. Got to be careful of this guy here. Sometimes guys will put a little piece of masking tape on there and that holds it too. So now we're back to our the door on the back of the slide. So we'll put our finger over top of that. We can get the door started here. Okay, now it's started. Now we have to depress that pin. Once again, get our small screwdriver, and you pretty much have to be on the outside of this thing. And as soon as you start pressing that down, I like to start putting pressure on that door, because see how that holds that back? So press it, and once you get it down far enough, there it is. In. Now you can remove this like that, and we can reassemble the whole gun. And recoil spring on these, what I like to do is open end, always put on the bottom. That catches that edge so it doesn't pop out of the hole. I've seen guys put them in this way and the coil will pop out the other end. Put that cut edge down. And these do have a pretty good beefy little spring in them. So you just gotta work these on. I said my hands are a little bit on the slippery side. There we go. There's that. Okay, time to put this back together now. One thing you gotta make sure is that you keep the recoil spring centered, not off like that, because that'll cause problems reassembling it. And actually I'm redoing this section here because I didn't have it quite centered. So we got that on. We can put the slide onto the frame. Now we can go back here and get the hole lined up. You can get that started. Now just got to do the reverse. You have your line-up notches there. Once you get close, and now you can see where that dimple is right there. Simply press that in like that, and that's it. We're reassembled. Other thing I did, was on the Kahr forum for a long time, is I cut back on the follower to help relieve some of the pop-up of the top round on these. This is a true single stack 9mm. The 43 is a staggered, and it improves quite a bit. 43 was nowhere even on the market when I got this. And this holds 6 + 1, 7 rounds of 9mm. The longer magazines, they tend not to be too reliable on these things because of the single stack configuration. But as far as a concealable gun, you can see what that looks like in my hand. So these things do fit in your belt pretty good. Some people even pocket them. I don't pocket. Anything I have has a holster, but they are thin, doesn't give you a print. So I just wanted to show you that, and that's how I resolved the problem of a gritty trigger in the Kahr. And pretty much all the Kahr family utilizes the same system. So if you run across this and check everything in the lower and don't find anything in the lower, then go in and look at the upper with the striker and the bore of the striker, and you may find some machining marks in there. So hope this helped somebody out, and I'll catch up to you guys later.